Hello, welcome to Shaken Not Stirred, episode 2. My name is Melinda. This is a channel for people who are willing to get shook up by life and use it as a catalyst for change, not to stir and stir and stir in old patterns that are no longer serving them. And today I would like to talk about how to recognize fear. There's a great deal of fear in our culture right now. We're dealing with a virus that has reached pandemic levels, and people are not coping very well, in my humble opinion. I'm part of a crisis group, um, or rather, an outreach group that invites people who are in crisis to call and feel a sense of support and security. And what I'm noticing is these calls tend to happen late at night. They tend to be very panicky, and it's all a really normal response to what the hell is going on right now. Every single person I've spoken to has an underlying diagnosis of PTSD. So if you have already suffered from trauma in your life, your brain, like the pump, has been primed and you know how to do fear very well. The fear response is located in the amygdala. It's like this old part of the brain, and it's kept us alive for as a species, right? Since back when we were dealing with saber-toothed tigers and running into our caves, that part of the brain gets triggered and our heart starts beating faster in order for there to get more blood source to our arms and legs so that we are able to run and flee or fight for our lives. And right now, we don't need to flee, we don't need to fight, we just get to stay home. So, that part of the brain that gets all this blood pumping and cortisol, which is the stress hormone, moving throughout our body and gets our nervous system all kinds of jacked up, um, so that we can sit on our couch and do what? The brain just starts to go, right? Into really dark places. And so I keep getting asked by clients and friends alike, how do I stay calm in this climate of fear? And I'm going to share with you just a little something that I shared with a crisis client just last night. So, the first thing is to recognize what fear feels like in your body, right? What's your heart doing? Are you noticing like the pitter pat, right? Are you Do your extremities kind of get a tingle? Do your shoulders get tense? Like, what happens in your body when you feel afraid? And you can either list like the bodily sensations, which is helpful, or what I really like to do is figure out like a metaphor to use for your fear. So, like, my fear feels like a dark cloud that's like looming over, or my fear is like, it's usually something in nature, right? Like a storm, underwater, something like that. So, get clear about what your fear feels like. And if you have the time, and I think maybe you do, it'd be really useful to write a little story about that fear feeling, or have it be a character, give it a name, draw it. That's sort of my personal favorite. Draw it out like it's a little fear monster, or draw the picture of the storm or whatever. Right? Get creative and get really clear about, think about that time where you felt like super, super fearful. Let yourself kind of drop into that space and then feel it and get really clear about what that is. And then shift gears and think about a time when you felt really, really, really loved and very loving. And what does that feel like? And it might feel like a bright summer day, or maybe you're not a fan of the sun and it feels more like that cozy overcast, or, you know, a glass of milk or something. I don't know. But figure out what loving feels like and what's going on in your body when you feel that, right? And get very, very clear about that. And again, draw a picture. I think that's like we have the time to do these types of things right now, so why not? Um, and when you are able to identify, am I in a place of fear? Am I in that dark, stormy place? Or am I feeling this sense of love, right? You're able to pivot out of one and into the other. So, the first thing is knowing what it even feels like being aware of that, right? And then the pivoting out of it, it's really about understanding that you have a choice. And it doesn't feel like you do, but you do. There's like a tiny little millisecond before the story of it starts to kick in, right? So there's like the initial feeling in your body, um, and that's like could be a really uncomfortable feeling. And then it's like you go right to the story of like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. Oh my God, it's like the worst ever, and how's it ever gonna get better? I just don't think there are any solutions. Or whatever story you put with it, it that's what's gonna create that emotion of either fear or love. And let's face it, there are no, like, if we get really, really basic about the two stations that we can be tuned into in this lifetime, it's that AM feeling of fear, which is like that crunchy, like staticky, the stuff's not coming through very clear, and it's a lot of old news. Generally, you don't want to hear it, right? Or a really clear station, a really like all your favorite hits, and it's just clean, clean sound, and you just want to blast it and dance and sing along to it. That would be that love frequency. And love is really more of a frequency than it is even a feeling, which is pretty cool to think about. So you can really tune into this, but it takes some doing, it takes some awareness. So the very first thing you want to do is just become aware of what it feels like in your body. And then when you start to feel that fear, instead of like attaching a story to it that will only create more fear and get you feeling more freaked out, right? You can think to yourself, like, oh, this is my fear talking in order to alert me that this part of my brain is working, and I can pause. And there is such power in that tiny little pause, right? And I can decide, like, I'm not going to attach myself to that story. I'm not going to go down that road where, oh, it's the end of the world and we're all going to die. Like, we don't know that. We don't know that this is the end. This could be a beautiful new beginning. Yeah, it is a scary time right now, but there are also many gifts in this time right now. And I bet if you were to start seeking those out, like what are the gifts in the suffering right now? What are all the little silver linings? Um, I have a friend who is offered that, like, what are the silver linings? And we're all in this group chat, and we are all chiming in about all the ways life seems to be really beautiful right now. Um, it helps you tune into that different frequency, that love frequency, which is such a kinder place to live right now. Um, I know that both are here, and it is really big. The fear, it feels really big right now. But you do have the option to play with the dials a little bit and change the station and drop into a different frequency. And really, all it takes is noticing where you are, so what that feels like, and then deciding not to jump into a story about it because the story may or may not be true. Like when we're in that emotionally charged place and our amygdala is just firing all the cortisol into our system and lots of like fight or flight shit is going on in our body, we don't really have access to our frontal lobe, which is where we're able to problem solve, where we're able to come up with creative solutions, right? It's just a very black and white, like, well, it's either, you know, death or disaster, either way you look at it. That's not necessarily true. It's just like emotionally, it can feel true right now. But if you can pause and recognize that there really is a 50-50 chance of things actually being okay at some point, um, and explore that other 50% chance. Allow yourself to drop into that frequency of love and feel it. Look for all the clues that life is still loving, that people are still good, that there's a great deal of compassion, that life is worth living, right? Um, One of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. And because we've had some extra time gifted to us, I was actually able to re-watch The Shawshank Redemption not too long ago. And you can either get busy living or get busy dying. And that's really the frequency of love or fear, right? And right now is a beautiful time to play with this stuff and see if you can change the station and see if you can recognize when the story around it maybe isn't entirely true, but just like a really emotionally charged, fear based response. And if you can't do it on your own, call somebody who can help you just like sit with it and like, yeah, this is scary. Like, you got to acknowledge it. You got to be like, yeah, thank you, fear. You're here to keep me safe. You've been biologically given to me so that I don't, run into traffic or try to fight a bear barehanded or whatever. But is it really appropriate to live in that headspace all day long, every day for the entire time you're quarantined? No, it's too exhausting. It's too much. And especially if you already have PTSD, like it's just, it's just not okay to put yourself in that place day in and day out. So who do you know? Who do you have in your life who's really, really loving? Who do you know who's able to kind of spin things um, with a little more grace and gentle, loving kindness? Have those people on your favorites so you can give them a call, send an SOS, drop into your local, Facebook crisis group. There are crisis groups in many communities all across the world right now of, groups of therapists and good listeners and crisis workers willing to just sit and listen and spend some time. I'm part of one called Community Strong, and I'll put the suicide hotline number down in the show notes. That's also a resource that's always available. Um, and again, I think people in general are just more willing to help each other right now because we all understand that we're in this together and we're here to learn and we're here to evolve together. So, yeah, that's my share for today. Thank you for listening. Hope you still remain shaken but not stirred. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.